Hi everyone, happy Thursday. I need to see comments so I know you can see me. This is my first time going live where hopefully we've got, friends, family, stampers following. I'm not seeing anything yet. I'm trying to see if I'm live as well. It says I'm live, it says I'm recording, so hopefully everyone can see me. I'll give it a few minutes. Just let me know if you happen to be on so you can say, hey, I see you. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Just checking here to see how everything's going. So let me tell you about what I'm doing in my Facebook Lives. These will be in every Thursday evening Facebook Live. This is what I'm calling my to-go class. Basically, I'm going to create 3 cards with you. And then if you like those 3 cards, you are welcome to create, or you're welcome to place an order in my online store. And when you do so, I'm going to send you the kits to make those cards for free. And I apologize, I'm not trying to be distracted. I'm just not quite certain that I'm actually live. It says I am, but I'm not seeing anything yet. So if you're here, let me know. But I'm on my Facebook page and I'm not seeing it there either. So let's see. Oh, I am live. Okay, good. Okay, very good. Moving on. So the to-go class. I will create 3 cards for you. After I create the 3 cards, then you have the opportunity to place an order on my online store if you choose. If you choose to do so and you use the host code that I've got for this particular to-go class, then that is my signal to send you the kit. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the kit. So let me take this off for just a second, and I'm going to share my computer screen with you for just a second to talk about the to-go class, just to give you more specifics on it. So the to-go class will be shipped to you when you place an order of $40 or more in my online store. You'll receive everything you need, all the supplies you need to create 6 cards. So it's 2 of each of the cards. You'll receive everything that you need, including a PDF tutorial. And then of course you'll have this live to be able to watch as well to help you with assembly. What I can't do is I can't stamp any cards for you. So Stampin' Up! Has a policy that we're not allowed to do any stamping for you, so you'll receive the cardstock and everything you need to stamp on, but I can't stamp for you. And I won't for anything that I'm using bundles on. Hopefully you have the bundle. If you don't have the bundle, you can certainly purchase the bundle in your purchase, but I won't do any stamping or cutting with anything that uses the bundle. If I'm using die cuts outside of the bundle, then absolutely, I will make sure that those are die cut. I'm actually tonight using a embossing folder that is not part of that bundle. So when you receive your kit, you will receive that embossed piece of cardstock. So ordering started on the 10th. Going forward, as I do these weekly, you'll be able to start placing orders 2 days prior to the actual Facebook Live. This will become a routine thing. I will post it on my Facebook page. I post it on my website. So when I get ready to post all of this, it'll be available to you. You can start ordering 2 days prior to the actual live. Then orders are due by October 16th. So you have basically 4 days past the video to place your orders. And then I need to start cutting. So I'll get things cut, and by the 18th of this month, I will get those kits in the mail. So that's a little bit about this. I'm going to go back to my workstation so that I can show you what we're doing. And we are going to be working tonight with the All About Autumn suite. This is in the mini catalog that goes through December of this year. And we're going to be utilizing the Autumn Leaves bundle. So the Autumn Leaves bundle, and then also as part of this suite, there's the Autumn Leaves Specialty Designer Series paper. We're going to be using a little bit of that as well. So are you ready to see the cards that we're going to create tonight? I'm so excited. They're so pretty. So let me move this out of the way, and I'll bring these cards in. So we have 3 very pretty cards to create. I'll hold them up so you have a chance to see them a little bit closer. This is the embossed one. Actually, I embossed Designer Series paper. So we'll talk about that in just a second. This is going to be the first card that we're creating. This is the second card that we're creating. And then we have a third card that we're going to create. So pretty. I'm really excited to get started. So let's get started with card number 1. When you receive your kits, if you choose to get the to-go class, it'll come like this, and you'll get the envelope as well. But I cut all the pieces for you. I put it in an envelope, and basically tonight for this card, we're going to be using the Pretty Peacock cardstock. This is the Earth and Elegance DSP, and I don't know if you can see this or not. It's one of the reasons why I decided to emboss it. It's kind of speckled. Let me see if I can get this figured out with the camera. It's speckled, and it just wasn't popping the way that I wanted it to pop, so I decided to emboss it, and I'm so glad that I did. Then we've got some of the Designer Series paper that I talked about that came with this bundle, and we're going to be using some of the copper ribbon that also came with this suite. Look at this. It's so pretty. Sparkly. And let me see. Do I have anything else in here? Yes, I do. I have pieces of cardstock in here that we're going to be actually stamping the leaves on. So let's get started with that. I'm going to pull my inks out so that we can start stamping. And when I stamp, I typically, and I'll have to explain this a little bit more. The Autumn Leaf stamps. These stamps are photopolymer stamps. So here's an example of one of the stamps. Sorry, trying to get my camera right. There's no cushion to a photopolymer stamp. You can see through the photopolymer stamps, makes it great for lining stamps along with other stamps, and you can see through them, so you can do a better job with that. But it's really difficult because there's no cushion. So you have to be really careful about the surfaces that you're stamping on. So whenever I'm using my photopolymer, I always use my Stampin' Pierce mat, and then I always use this piece of scrap paper over it. So I'm getting that out to start, and we're going to start with the leaves that we've got, and we're going to do those in Pretty Peacock. So let me pull this out. This is our Stampin' Ink pad. When you open it, you always pop it from the back. It'll make a little pop sound, and then you can open it up. And then what I do when I'm stamping is I make sure that I don't have any issues with the stamps. Perhaps there's a bubble under the stamp, or the other night I was stamping and there was a piece of lint or something on the stamp, and it was actually showing up. So I always do a practice stamp to make sure that everything is as it should be. And then when you're inking your stamp, you just want to tap on the stamp pad to ink your stamp, and you can see that the stamp has been covered. You want to be careful not to get it on any outside edges, or even on your block, your stamping block, because it can transfer to your cardstock. And then you have to figure out creative ways to cover ink that you've accidentally gotten on your cardstock. So stamping that again. We've got the 2 leaves now. And then what I do is I always, and it's just me, other people might do it differently, but I always clean my stamp. This is my stamp chamois. My Simply Chamois cleans my stamp off very quickly, and then I can move on, and that way I'm not getting into the ink. I'm going to go ahead and close up this ink pad as well, because again, I'm notorious for getting into the ink. The other thing I wanted to show you while I was holding this block is that when I'm at my workstation, whether I'm doing something on Facebook Live, or I'm actually working in my studio, excuse me, I store my stamps like this to not take up as much space. So I'm gonna have to scoot back for just a second because I dropped one of my leaves that I'm gonna have to die cut here in just a second. Thought I felt something fall. But when I have as many stamps as I have tonight, if I lay them all flat like this, they're gonna take up too much space. So I always store my stamps like this when I'm creating, and I have more space. Plus I can also see what I've got. So let's move to the next. I'm gonna do that for the sentiment. Let's pull out Old Olive. We're gonna use Old Olive for the leaves right here. Again, pop this open. Find those stamps, or these leaves, they're actually one stamp, but there's two leaves on one stamp. So we'll test this out. Oops, I can see. See, I did a stamp, stamp, stamp. Let me see if you guys can see. But you can see right here, it didn't pick up the ink. So I'm gonna stamp it again and test it out. We've got it. So let's do these. And we're gonna die cut these in just a second. And then the last, well, actually, I've got two that I need to stamp. I thought this had, hold on a second, I've got a piece missing. I'll borrow it from another kit. I also do the insides of my cards. So we're gonna stamp the inside of the card as well while we're stamping and we've got our inks out. So let me close this. Pull out the pretty peacock again. I need to clean this stamp off really quick. And let's see, I need I'm Thankful, so I'm looking for the I'm Thankful stamp. I have this one, and I have I'm Thankful. So I'm gonna stamp the I'm Thankful on this small piece of cardstock. And again, just tapping, making sure that I've got good contact. I do. We're gonna do this again. Stamp that. We'll cut that out. And then I'm gonna clean this stamp off. And I'm going to do the same thing with the autumn teaches us that change can be beautiful. I think that's a beautiful saying. So let me stamp it over here. Everything looks good. I'm gonna do a better job of getting it inked up. You can see that I've got some ink. Let me see if I can show this to you. You can see that I've got some ink right along here. So I'm gonna watch this really closely. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and stamp again just to test it. And as long as I don't rock my stamp, I'll be good. It's not going to transfer. So I'm gonna center this in the cardstock. Perfect, now I can set this aside. Okay, so that part of it's done. Let's pull out my Stampin' Emboss and we're gonna do some die cutting. So I'm gonna pull this up here, make some room for it. And then those of you who are familiar with the Stampin' Emboss, you know what I'm talking about. But when you use a die cutter, you've got different sandwiches that you have to utilize in order to cut, whether you're doing, when you're doing thin dies, or maybe you're doing some embossing or some 3D embossing, things like that. So with our cut and emboss, you have your main plate and it has the instructions for the various sandwiches that you're going to need. We are actually just using the thin dies. So the sandwich that we have to use is plate number 1, and then it also calls for plate number 2, and then 2 of plate number 3. So I will share with you, my plate number 3s are well used. It's almost kind of embarrassing that they're used as much as they are, but they still work perfectly. And what I do, and you can tell there's hardly any warp to it, I'm trying to make sure that I can get this in view for you. I just rotate. So I rotate one side, I rotate the other side, and then I may switch it around and put it through one way and then the other way. And then I always use my second plate as my top plate. This is the clean plate. I've made a few mistakes where I cut and forgot, but basically this stays my top plate. When I'm done with the bottom plate that it's just not working for me anymore, then this plate will become my bottom plate and I'll start with a new top plate. So let's go ahead and get things lined up here to get cut. I'm gonna have to cut the leaf twice, but I can go ahead and I can get the other items cut all in one swoop. So I do use a little bit of tape just to hold my dies in place so that they don't slip and cut where I don't want them to cut. So we'll get that one put down, and then we've got the die for this one. I reuse my tape a lot. So let me go ahead and get these lined up. There we go. Then one more for this one. And some more tape. Now these are ready to be cranked through the machine. So I'll just put my top plate on and crank it through. Off. I'm going to set these off to the side. Actually, I'm going to pull off this leaf because I need to do this leaf one more time. I'm very careful when I take my tape off because I don't want to tear my cardstock. Tape is intended to be used as a tape that's not so sticky, so you shouldn't have any problems with it. But the pressure that you get when you run it through the die cutting machine sometimes makes it stick more than it normally would. So you just want to be careful when you're taking that tape off. And then we'll run this one through. And then the next thing that we'll do while we've got this cut and emboss out is we'll do the embossing on the cardstock. So remember I showed you the cardstock, or it's not cardstock, it's actually designer series paper, so it's a lot thinner. We're going to be utilizing here it is. We're going to be utilizing the 3D distressed tile embossing plate. And when you're embossing, I don't know if you can notice or not, but let me see. I'm still trying to figure this out. I want to get this to you so you can see. There's a line that goes through here. And this is a great way to line up your paper so that your emboss is straight. So I'll get that lined up, press that down. Now, there's a different sandwich for embossing. This is a 3D embossing folder. So it calls for plate number 1 and plate number 4. So I'm going to put it down, run it through, and you'll see when I get done with this that it adds a little bit of antiquing to it. Designer series paper is thinner than cardstock is. And I'm going to move this out of the way so that I can share more with you. But designer series paper is thinner, so the embossing goes deeper. I don't know if you can see that, but there's white core in the cardstock, and from the back, all of our designer series papers are two-sided, and because this is so light on the back side, it's actually pushed through. But what's cool about it is now you've got this really neat antique-y piece of paper. So let me put this off to the side, and we'll start to assemble the card. I'm going to pull these dies off. So we've got our die cuts. There you go. And then last but not least, the sentiment. Okay, so we've got everything ready. Let me move some of this trash out of the way, and we can start to assemble. So with this particular card, we are going to be adding the designer series paper to each side of this, but it doesn't go edge to edge here. It's actually going to go edge to edge on the card base. So let me fold this card base in half. I'm going to use my bone folder to burnish it closed so it stays closed for me. And then if you can see the card, the designer series paper, the embossed designer series paper does not go all the way to the edges. So what you're going to do is you're going to line it up on the base, the card base, but we're going to line it up so that these edges meet the edges of the card base. And what that means is that we're going to put a little strip of glue along this edge of the designer series paper. I don't want any glue on my card base just yet because I still need to add my ribbon. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. So I'm going to pull out my glue, and Stampin' Up! Carries the Tombow liquid mono glue. This is what I use for everything. I am a glue person. We do have our Stampin' Seal. I can pull this out. I do use it periodically, but I don't use the tape as much. It just depends upon what I'm doing because I don't have as much flexibility with the tape. So I like to use the glue, and I like to have a lot of control with the glue. I use the bigger one, but it has a bigger tip. And with the bigger tip, it's more difficult for me to get the fine little lines that I want to get. The other thing that I was going to share with you is that for my glues, I always store them upside down. So when I am gluing, as soon as I'm done, I put it back in my holder, and that way it keeps the glue at the top all the time. So basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just do a little fine line. And you can see it is just a fine line along this edge. I'm going to center it where I want it to go. And it doesn't have to be exact. What's really important is that when you glue your other piece of designer series paper, you're just lining it up along the edge of the card base and the top and the bottom of the other piece of the embossed designer series paper. So let me lay that back down again. I tugged on it too hard. So it's there. We're gonna let that set for just a second. When you're gluing on embossed paper, you always wanna use just a tiny bit more glue anyway, because you've got the crevices from the embossing that you've got to account for. So let me put, again, on this side, I turned it over so that I could get this side done. Got my glue there. I'm gonna line up the edges of this over here. And then I'm gonna take this strip of designer series paper and I'm going to align it to the other edge. So this designer series paper is going to cover the front of your card from edge to edge, top to bottom, side to side. There's no centering on this. But I wanted to make sure that I had it so that it fit appropriately, and that's why I was gluing it the way that I did. Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your ribbon, and what you're gonna do with your ribbon is you're going to tuck it in each side of the designer series paper so that when we finally glue the designer series paper on or down, the ribbon is hidden. You can kind of see how that works here, where the ribbon is kind of hidden between the top layer and the base, which makes it nice and neat. So what I'm gonna do is, in this example, I'm going to take the seal and I'm gonna put a little bit of seal on, let's see, a little bit on this end. Make sure it's catching. It doesn't act like it's catching. So maybe it doesn't want to stick to that. So I always have extra adhesive, and we're going to use the tear and tape for this. So I'm going to take a little bit of tear and tape and add it to my ribbon on each end. And then we'll peel the tear and tape off and adhere it to the DSP. And then we can adhere the DSP down to the card base. So let me pull my ends off here. Then I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to tuck one little end here. I want to make sure I've got plenty enough room. But what I'm going to do is I'm centering it over the seam that we already had there. So I'm going to turn this and tuck it in. So now it's sticking. and then I'll pull this down fairly tight so that there's no bubbles, if you will, in this. And then I'm not going to worry about, you can see it kind of buckles just a little bit, not a lot. You know, if I bend the paper, you'll see it. But I'm not going to worry about having to adhere that down because we're going to be putting the leaves on top of that. But before we get to that part, I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to add my glue to the back. And I think it's a misnomer that people think you've got to use plenty of glue to adhere your cardstock down. You don't. You can see I'm using very little and it works very well. But the nice part about all of this is that I have flexibility to be able to arrange my paper to line it up. If I don't get it centered correctly, I've got a little bit of wiggle room to be able to move it around before it actually sets. So now we've got that. Now it's time to do our leaves. So I'm going to pull out our dimensionals. I actually put our dimensionals on with, now see, oh, here it is. I'm like, I lost the other leaf. I'm going to put the dimensionals on with my tweezers. It's just easier for me. But what I'm doing is I'm planning about where I'm going to put those. So I'm going to put dimensionals on these leaves. And then I'm going to layer these leaves over the top. Because these leaves are being layered over the top, I certainly don't want dimensionals here. So I'll put a dimensional here, here, and then this will layer over the top. Here, here, this will layer over the top. And if you wanted to, you could put glue under it. I haven't because it stays in place, but you could if you wanted to. So let's go ahead and get our dimensionals on. And I'm just going to do them all at the same time. And while I've got them out, I'm going to go ahead and put them on the back of my sentiment as well. Okay, so let's start building. Pull up the backs to the dimensionals for this set of leaves, and I'm going to turn them around. And I'm going to place it over the ribbon. I don't know if you can see, but I'm going to place it over the ribbon and angle it in a little bit. But I'm going to make sure that I'm not going off the edge of the card. So we've got it here. And then we'll take the first leaf and I'm going to do basically the same. I'm going to just angle it a little bit over the ribbon, down a little bit on the green leaves, set that there. And so you can see now it's holding the ribbon down even more. So that, you don't need to add additional glue to the ribbon there. And then I'm just gonna lay this one on top going this way. Okay. So we've got our ribbons. Then I'm going to add the sentiment to the top, pulling that off, making sure I get this lined up appropriately. I've got my sentiment on, just looking to make sure it's straight, I think, yep. And the last piece is to add some embellishments. So I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool. And these are the embellishments, I think, when we were talking about the free with purchase class. It's a $40 order. You get it free with purchase. I will send you the kit. If the order is $50, I'm actually going to include a brand new pack of embellishments. These particular embellishments are the 2023-25 in color dots, but I will include this in your thank you for your order. So let's go ahead and add some embellishments here. I'm going to stick one here. I'm going to do another one down here. Let's see where to go. Right here. The Take Your Pick tool just makes it a little bit easier to control where your embellishments are going to go. So I've got my embellishments on. The only thing I have left to do now, let me see, bring this down, bring it down. The only thing I have left to do now is to do my inside. So I'll open this up. I've got my cardstock here. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue on this. Okay. Get this centered. I can wiggle it around if I need to. I'm happy with that. And there we go. Our first card is done. And we're ready to move on to card number 2. All right. So here's our kit for card number 2. And let me pull card number 2 out so we can look at it. This card, there's no die cutting. There's no embossing. It's basically stamping and tearing to give you that dimension. In your kit, you're going to receive a piece of the pumpkin pie cardstock, which is the base. You're going to receive a piece of vanilla cardstock, which is what we're going to stamp our leaves on. We've got designer series paper. This particular designer series paper, I liked the plaid, and it comes from the Then Bones designer series paper, which is a Halloween designer series paper that we've got. And then we've got our cardstock for inside our card, and then we've also got the black and white gingham ribbon that we're going to be using. And I'm just using a couple of little pieces, and I'll show you what I'm going to be doing with those. So let's get some stamping done first. I always like to do the stamping first and then the assembly last, if I can do that. So I'm going to pull my Stampin' Pierce mat out again, and we're going to start with, let me pull this stuff over so I don't get it in the way. We're going to start with the pumpkin pie. So pop this open, and we're going to be utilizing this bigger leaf for the first one. So I'm double checking to make sure that I'm getting the leaf inked up appropriately. I am going to do a test just to make sure I don't have any issues with it. Nope, looks good. So let's ink it up again. And then I'm going to take my piece of cardstock. I almost stamped it on the wrong one. My piece of cardstock, and I'm going to angle my leaf enough that part of it is going to fall off the paper. So you always want to have a piece of scrap paper underneath, especially if you happen to be stamping off. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp that down. Got our first leaf. Let's go ahead and get that cleaned up. Get my Simply Chamois out. Get that cleaned off. The other thing I'll point out while I'm doing this, and I happen to have this in my hand, I've used this leaf a lot of times, and you can see that it's picked up some of the color from the ink. It's a bit stained. Maybe you can see it's a bit stained. It doesn't hurt the stamp at all. The stamp works perfectly. It's okay if it's stained. It's just that sometimes with the darker colors, especially colors that have red in it, they tend to stain, but it doesn't hurt the stamp at all. All right, so let's go to our next one. We've got this leaf, and we're going to use, oh, I need to close my pumpkin pie so I don't get my fingers in it. We're going to use the Pretty Peacock ink again. And I'm just going to test it. I've used this stamp already tonight, but let me just make sure nothing happened. Okay, very good. Tapping again. And this time I'm going to align the stamp. Oh, I want to tear off part of it. So I want to make sure that I get it close enough to the edge of the paper that when I tear the paper, I will be tearing some of this stamp. So I'm going to lay it right here. We've got that one stamped. And actually you can kind of see there might have been a little bit of ink on the edge we've got there, but I'm going to be doing a stem, so that should cover that up. So we've got that one cleaned up. We'll put this ink away, and then we're going to go back to our leaves again, and this time we're going to use Old Olive. So let me put the Old Olive out. Our leaves are right here. So tapping the ink, make sure I've got good coverage. Just going to double check. Yep, all's good. And these leaves I'm going to put up close to, there's a couple things that I'm looking at because I've got stems that I'm going to be putting here. So I think I'm just going to put them right here. Okay, good. Let's clean this one off. Put this away, and then I'm going to get out the Memento Tuxedo Black ink. This ink is great to use not only for stamping, but you can stamp, and then if you're going to use colored pencils or markers or alcohol markers, you don't have to worry about the ink bleeding. So it's a great ink to have on hand. So now we're going to do stems. So I'm going to pull out my stems right now, and we're going to start with the little green leaves. So testing this out, making sure I've got good coverage. I can look at my stem and I can see, and I did just ink this ink pad up, so sometimes it gets really juicy. I don't know if you can see or not. I'll try to show you, but on this stem you can see how there's a lot of extra ink there. That concerns me. I don't want it to be too inky for my card. So I'm going to test it out just to see. It seemed to be fine. It went up on the edges, but it didn't actually affect the stamp. So what we're going to do now is we're going to align the veins of the stamp with the leaves, and we'll stamp that up. So now our leaves have veins. So let me clean that one off, and we've got 2 more to do. Then let's do the big one next. And the big one has got a long stem to its veins. So I want to double check to make sure that when I do this, I'm not actually coming down on one of the other leaves, because then I would see the vein in the leaf and it's not necessarily supposed to be there. So I'm really trying to line this up. I think it's just barely going to bypass it. So I'm going to go for it. Hopefully we bypassed it and it's not there, but we'll pull that up. And it did. It bypassed it. So good job. All right. So let's clean this one up. And we've got 1 more to do. And then we'll stamp sentiments. So last one is for my, oh, you can see again how, oh, let me see. I want to make so you guys can see. You can see how thick that is there. I'm going to test this one. A little bit, not bad. What it meant is that I didn't have enough ink on the other ones. So I want to make sure that I have enough ink so that they're all going to stamp correctly. All right, now this particular one is long enough that it is going to come down and it is going to stamp over my green leaf. And I don't want it to stamp over my green leaf. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Stampin' Chamois or my simple chamois, and I'm just going to take off the very end of that leaf so that I'm going to test it again and see if that is enough. And it is enough that it's not going to, I need to take off just a tiny bit more. I mean, it's not a big deal, but I just don't want that stem on my green leaf. So let's go ahead and get this lined up and stamp it down. And there we go. All right, so let me clean this one off and we'll be ready to work on the sentiments. The sentiments are also done in the Tuxedo Black ink. We're going to use the I'm Thankful again, but the I'm Thankful stamp is just I'm Thankful. See, can I show that to you? I don't know if you can see that. It's upside down, right? I don't know. Anyway, we've got the I'm Thankful stamp, and then it says for all you do. So then I've got a stamp here that has the, for all you do on it. So I'm going to do the I'm Thankful stamp first. And we're going to test it out just to make sure everything's good. Oh, that one was kind of crazy. See that? I don't know what that was all about. So let me do this again. Okay, much better. Okay, and so I'm going to put it down here. I want to get it down a little bit lower because I'm going to be putting the ribbon on. So I'm going to stamp that. There we go. Clean that off. And then I'm going to stamp the for all you do. Thankful for all you do. So let me test this one. Yep, that's good. So I think, okay. I'm going to put it right here for all you do. Perfect. Okay, one more stamp, and that's for the inside. So I'm going to pull my cardstock for the inside over, and this is going to be with the saying, if I can find it, the autumn teaches us that change can be beautiful. Love that. Make sure. Nope. Actually, that's not what I'm doing. Sorry. I love this saying so much, I want to put it in all my cards. Actually, what we're going to be using is the one that says with a grateful heart. So I'm thankful for all you do with a grateful heart. So we'll go ahead and get that one inked up. Test it out. Looks good. Ink it again. Make sure it's covered. And then I'm going to line this up. Perfect. Alrighty. So let's assemble. Let's go ahead and get the stamps put off to the side, get the ink closed up. Here's the mat out of the way. Little crooked, but it just means it's homemade. So let's start with the pumpkin pie cardstock. Fold it in half. I'm going to take my bone folder and burnish it so that it's stamped down. Then I'm going to take my stamped cardstock that I did, and we're going to tear. We're going to get it ready to adhere to the base, but I'm going to go ahead and tear it down. I think I'm tearing probably about 1/4 inch. Just tear it towards you. Because you're tearing it towards you, you can kind of see the texture. Let me see if I can bring this up so you can see the texture. You can see the texture when you tear it towards you. So tear it towards you. I'm tearing across that leaf, which is what I wanted to do. I'm going to continue to tear it all the way down. It doesn't have to be straight. You just basically want to get that edge off. Okay, very good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add the designer series paper to it. So for this particular card, I'm going to be centering the cardstock of the designer series paper on the card base. There's going to be a little bit of an edge on each side, which is what I want it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to line it up with this edge on the designer series paper. So I'm going to go ahead and take my glue, and I'm going to use my silicone mat so I don't get it on my work surface, but I'm going to use my glue, and I'm just going to put a little stream of glue right along here. And then I will line my designer series, or my cardstock, up with that edge. And what I want to make sure now is that it's even. So if I try to center this, what may happen is I will find, and actually, oh, I didn't. Okay, so if it's even on this side, you can see that it's not even on this side. So what I need to do is I need to pull this cardstock in just a little bit so that, and I've got that give, because I'm using glue. But I want to make sure that my edges are the same on both sides. This one, I pulled it in, and it looks like I pulled it in a little bit. I didn't pull it in enough. So I'm going to pull this in just a little bit more. See if that'll do it. Probably need to pull out just a little bit, but a little flexibility to pull it out. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I do want to have even sides on each side. So that's pretty darn close. So we're going to go with that. And then basically what will happen is I'm going to take the glue and glue down my card base. And it was tacked, you know, with that little strip. There I can see that because I pulled it up, there's a little bit of give there, but that's going to go away because now I'm gluing the entire piece down. So we'll take this. Again, center it. Whoops, you want to make sure you're doing it straight. Turn it around. And so I'm going to center it here, and then I'm going to center it over here, and I can wiggle it a bit to make sure we've got it. Oh, you know what? I'm going to pull this off. I forgot. I want to put the ribbon on, and we're going to do the ribbon like we did the ribbon on the last card. So it's going to go behind. The nice part about the silicone mat, so I'm going to pretend like I did this on purpose so I could show you. The nice part about the silicone mat is that you can lay things that are sticky on it and then they won't stick. I mean, they'll pull right up. So because I have glue on the back of that, I need to take into account that now I need to work on my ribbon. So I'm going to set this down, and you can see what I'm going to do is I'm going to align it across my card, and then we're going to tuck the edges in. So I'm going to pick this up. And actually what I need to do is I need to put a little bit more tear and tape on this. Or actually what I'll do is let me just put some of this seal on the back of my card really quickly. Problem is seal is great for cardstock. It's a little unforgiving when you put it on DSP. It tends to pull the DSP up, but I did good. It did do it. And I'm sorry if you guys couldn't see that. I basically was putting a little edge of seal on each side. So I'm going to lay my ribbon down here. Oops, I guess it needs to be up a little bit higher. So we're going to take it and put it up a little bit higher. I'm going to pull it across, and then I'm going to connect it to the back. Okay? So we're there. I am going to add just a little bit more glue because some of this glue has dried. So we'll put a little bit more glue on this. Now we can center it on the card. So let me put this back down. The ribbon has now been adhered to it. And I'll get this all lined up. All right, there you go. Now we're going to take this little piece of ribbon. Remember I showed you we had 2 pieces of ribbon. You're going to slide this ribbon underneath, and then you're just going to tie a little knot. And that little knot then will serve as your bow. Okay, I'm going to take my snips. Now I have 2 pairs of snips. One pair of snip is for paper only. The other pair of snips is for ribbon. Paper will dull your snips. So when you go to cut ribbon with your snips that you've been cutting paper with, it doesn't cut evenly on your ribbon. It makes things difficult. So I put a little bow of ribbon on my snips so that I know these are my ribbon snips, and then I can just clip that off. And let's see, let's turn it so I've got a good angle. Clip this off, and we're good to go. Last piece to this is we're going to put the inside in. And the way that we're going to decorate the inside is I have a little bit more of that designer series paper left. It's really fun to be able to do this with scraps. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the back. There you go. And then I'm just going to line it up with the edge of the cardstock. Get that lined up. Okay. And then you can see that I have just a teeny tiny bit of overhang. So I'm going to take not my ribbon snips, but my paper snips, and I'm going to just snip that off to make it even. So now that it's even, I could put glue on the back. And we can put it inside the card. Make sure I got this even. Perfect. Let me move this out of the way. And now we have card number 2 done. So fun, so fun. So let's move on to card number 3. Look how pretty this card is. Can you see in the designer series paper right here, the copper in it? Are you able to see that? Let me see if I can do this so that, hard balancing in the camera. Oh, can you see the reflection? So pretty. So pretty. Okay, so we're gonna do that. So here is the kit for this card that we're going to make. You're going to get 2 pieces of cardstock, of vanilla cardstock. The first piece is going to be your base. So this is our base. The second piece is going to be the piece that you're going to stamp all of these leaves on. Stamp all the leaves. Then you're going to receive a piece for inside the card for your sentiment. I believe, let me look and double check just to be sure. We've got 2 layers that you're going to receive that we're going to put on the front of the cardstock or the base. And then you've got the designer series paper. So what I was looking for is I wasn't sure if the sentiment was going to be stamped on this. There's probably room for it, but I did include in the kit a second piece of cardstock so that you can stamp the sentiment and cut it out. And then of course you've got the 2 pieces of designer series paper that are going to go on the side, the 1 piece that's going to go here. This is called, I have to look, this is called, what do we call this? This is oxidized copper specialty paper. So pretty, look at that sparkle. And then I've got another strip that we're going to utilize for the inside of the card. So, by the magic of Facebook Live, we already have the leaves all stamped and cut. You saw me stamp and cut leaves earlier, so I thought, you probably would rather me just watch me put this card together versus watch me stamp and cut again. So we're going to go ahead and start to assemble this card. So let me move these pieces out of the way. We're going to start with our card base, our vanilla cardstock. And again, I'm going to fold it, take my bone folder and burnish. And then we're going to start doing layers. So this one starts with the Mossy Meadow cardstock. And because we were using Mossy Meadow for the cardstock, I also used Mossy Meadow for the leaves versus the old olive. So let's go ahead and get this adhered down. It's very light on the glue, believe it or not. It might look like a lot, but it's not. And then we'll get this centered appropriately. Very good. Then we're going to take the copper clay cardstock, and we're also going to adhere it down. Up so I can get it centered. I love the wiggle room that I get with the glue. Okay. We're going to start with the DSP that we have here. And actually, let me pull out another kit because I think I put 2 long. Yeah, I did. I put 2 longs in one and 2 shorts in one. So here's the long one. We're going to start with the long one. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to line it up so that it's evenly spaced on each side. So I'm going to go ahead and take the glue. Line that up. And then you're going to layer this one right over the top of that one, and then it'll be evenly spaced on this side. Make sure it's straight. We've got that. Next piece is our green designer series paper with all the sparkle in it. Oh, so pretty. And just to show you, all of our DSPs, I know I mentioned this before, but all of our DSPs are two-sided. So on this side of the DSP, you've got fall leaves. So pretty. All right. I need to remember to keep this closer so you guys can see what I'm doing. And then I'm just going to bring this in, not quite halfway, and line this up. Make sure it's even. Okay. And now we're ready to start doing our leaves. So I'm going to assemble, thinking from the bottom up. So the first two leaves that need to go on are, if you guys can see, I'm sorry, the two leaves, and this particular leaf is stamped in wild wheat. So I'm going to go ahead and find my dimensionals. I've got them here. I know I do. And my tweezers. And I'm going to put dimensionals on the back of wild wheat. I'm going to, because it's on the bottom, I can go ahead and place one at the top and one at the bottom. And then my green, I'm going to make those the same way, top and bottom. And then we're going to do a little fun ribbon with this. So if you can see, I'm going to go ahead and take the dimensionals off of our little green leaves, and they're facing this way, so they come down just maybe a little bit over the designer series paper. So I've got those down there. And then I'm going to take these leaves, and they go up closer to the top. So I'm going to lay them up here, probably about right there. So now I've got this little space here, and what I'm going to do with this little space is I'm actually going to create this. Let me see if you could see this. This is a frayed ribbon. Can you see that? We're going to create that. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of our natural ribbon. Now what I did before I used it tonight is you can see this little strip here. Let me see if I can put this down. This little strip here. This little strip is actually glue. And the reason I did that is just to kind of help prevent it from fraying at the top. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to create the ribbon, and we're going to take a piece and we're just going to start pulling. Hopefully you guys can see this. And I'm just going to keep pulling the ribbon, and as I pull the ribbon, it starts to fray even more. And I'm just going to keep going and going until I get fairly close to the top. If my string gets too long and it is causing me problems, I can certainly cut it down. But right now everything's working really well, so I'm just going to keep pulling, getting that fray. I want plenty of fray because I'm going to cover it up with the leaves. So I want to make sure I have plenty so that there's some sticking out too. So now we've got just maybe just a little over 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to cut that off, move this out of the way, and I'm going to line this up where I want it to go. So I want to tuck it in underneath this leaf, but I want it to stick out this way. So I'm probably going to pull it up, maybe, I don't know, I might even do it a little bit sideways. Because it's got glue on it, it's going to stick down. So I've got my ribbon, we've got our ribbon on, and let's start putting on the rest of the leaves. So the next leaf is the copper clay leaf. I'm going to look to see how it lays. Probably going to lay it about right here. What I'm looking at is I want a dimensional to go here, and I want a dimensional to go here, because this is flat and this is flat. I don't want to do dimensionals there because I've already got dimensionals on these leaves, so it's already raised up. So really the only places, I was thinking about putting it over here, but I think I'm going to even skip over there, and I'm just going to put the two dimensionals basically right here at the ends of these leaves. So let me do that. I'm keeping my finger in place so I know exactly where I want these to go. And I'm going to put two dimensionals here. Now, if I wanted to, it's going to go here. If I wanted to, I could put a drop of glue on the back to adhere that down, but I don't really need to do that. The dimensionals hold it down, and I'm gonna have another leaf on top of it, so I don't really need to glue that down. So let's go ahead and get this leaf down. I'm gonna put it about right here. So we've got the dimensionals. Do I got the dimensionals right? I want to put one at the top. It was a little wobbly, so I could feel it. So I'm going to put one up here too. All right, now let's try this. Line that up again. I want it to tilt this way. So we're going to go ahead and put that down. Okay, perfect. Got it. Now this one we're going to put this way, and it's on top of my copper clay one. So I don't need dimensionals here. I really only need dimensionals here and on the outer edge of this one. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it just a little bit. So I've got outer edge of this one, and we're going to put dimensionals here. And because this one is on top, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of glue on it. But let me get my dimensionals on first. So I'm going to put this one here. And then still thinking, I think, okay, we've got this one here. And then I need to put one right there. Right? And then we're going to put a little bit of glue, probably right on along this one. So a little bit here, a little bit here. So let's go ahead and pull the backs of our dimensionals off. Make sure I get this aligned correctly. Okay. There we go, got our leaves. Next step is to add our oxidized copper specialty paper. And I'm just gonna center it right across the top of those leaves. It doesn't take much, so I'm just gonna take a little bit of glue and I'm gonna put it right in the middle. It'll hold it, and you don't really need to add any additional glue besides that. So let me just look this up and make sure that I've got this straight. Now that I've got that, the next step is to add the sentiment. Same thing. And again, I mean, you could build more layers if you wanted to, but because you've already got dimensionals, and especially if you want to mail this card, you don't want it to be this fat. So I'm keeping everything on the top flat, but the card still has dimension, and I'll show you that in just a second. But I'm going to do the same thing with the sentiment. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue down the middle of it. I'm going to center it top to bottom, side to side, mostly, on my copper paper. And you can see that there is dimension to this card. We just layered it. So most of the dimension comes from the bottom, and then it's more flat on the top. So that's the front of our card. What I didn't do, oh, I did, look at this. I stamped "I'm thankful" in the card. So it's already done. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take another strip of designer series paper. I'm going to put it along the side. And I don't know, I just do it on the left side. You can do it on the left side. You can do it on the right side. It doesn't really matter. It's your preference. But I just typically tend to go to the left side. Again, I've got a little bit that's peeking out, so I'm just going to snip that off. And then we'll insert it into the inside of the card. Center it. Let's see. All right. So now we have our 2 cards done. So fun. Let me clean this up, bring the other cards in so that you can see them again before I go back to me. Let me get these blocks out of the way. And our other cards are right here. So we've got 2 of these, 2 of these, and 2 of these. So pretty. So fun. So let me switch back. I'm going to come back and talk to you guys live. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I am working to build my business, and Krista, I see you joined us. Thank you so much. It's so good to see you. Thank you for joining tonight, and thank you for loving the kits. Basically, as I shared before, if you choose to get this kit to go, it's a $40 order in my online store, and then I ship these kits to you. Or yes, I will ship these kits to you as a thank you. It's a free with purchase for placing the order. You'll get everything you need to make these cards. I am going to be doing this every week, every Thursday going forward at 7 o'clock. And I will let you know what these bundles are going to be early in the week so that you have a chance to go out and look at them and see, if they're of interest to you or not. But more than anything, I'm just happy to have you guys join us and to have you here while I'm creating. You know that I love sharing and I love giving what I create, and in turn it creates happiness, which is basically my theme for April Davis Creations. So thank you again for joining, and I will see you guys next Thursday on Facebook Live, Class to Go. Bye, everyone.